James.
Rough.
True or false?
Mm-hmm.
The world is changing.
False, mate. It's the same old shit.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's the same old shit.
The more things change, the more they stay the bloody same.
Exactly right. In fact, I'd remind that to you. I know that you listen to Down Around to get the forward guidance to learn what is happening in the world of technology. And sometimes you may feel dislocated. You may feel frightened, overwhelmed by the sort of things that we're talking about. You know, we're talking about AI futures, labour market disruption. We could be talking about...
What is labour market disruption but fire?
Artificial general intelligence. We could be talking about all these things. Keep in mind, no matter what's happening, same shit, different bucket. Nothing ever happens.
Amen, brother. With that in mind, Google I/O.
Google I/O, I've got a red hot episode.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of... we should up the top. Google I/O, latest in AI, obviously, but also the interesting dichotomy between Google and Apple. We want to talk a little bit later maybe about NVIDIA and China. This is just, all the classics. We're going to hit the classics, folks.
There's been
Google, Apple, NVIDIA, probably a bit of Grok and Elon Musk. You know, we're hitting them all. A bit of Microsoft maybe and Satcher.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big tech week. We're talking big tech this week, folks. So I hope you like that.
No, but I will say, I guess vaguely based on what we're saying up the top, it does feel like there's momentum. There is momentum. I think this week, even the last couple of days, I felt more than I have for a while that like deep breath here. Things are changing. Changes afoot.
Yeah, I think so. There's been a couple of things. I think Google I/O is actually a great way to start. So for those that don't know, Google I/O is Google's developer conference in the same way that Apple does WWDC, which is coming up next month. Surprise, surprise, it was extremely AI-oriented. They covered a lot of their updates and changes to Gemini and the various other things they've got going on. We'll start with the most whiz-bang sort of release that everyone on social media is currently sharing outputs from, and it is their new video generation AI VO.
VO3. We're up to number 3.
So,
people, keen Down Around listeners, and you don't have to be that keen, like 2 months ago, like 4 weeks ago, I was in Vegas, and as part of, I was at Google Cloud Next,
another conference,
the Cloud Conference. As part of, and again, keen listeners will know, in a slightly, I say this in a bashful way, I opened both days.
You were the opening act DJ.
But as part of, it was like a kind of whole, as I said, whatever, doesn't matter. We were using Google AI, it was about Google AI, did the whole conference, whatever. But part of the opening was, we had someone with us, a Google creative technologist named Tina, who was doing live coding using VO2. Part of that included doing the countdown to Google Cloud, like 60 seconds, it counts down, crowd goes wild, CEO walks out, amazing. But point being, Tina using VO2 was doing this countdown. 60, and it was cool, it was very cool. It was like, 60 out of clouds, 59 was a hedge that was being trimmed. But there were different kind of scenes. Anyway, Tina, once again, same girl, shout out to Tina, was doing it for Google I/O, same countdown. But this time, instead of it just going scene, 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 she was using VO3, the new one, and it kind of quite beautifully blended between them. A plane makes the 58 in the sky, and then it kind of pans down to the desert, and there's a car doing burnouts that makes 57, and then it zooms into the car, and the license plate says 56, and it actually transitions between them.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, okay, that is quite an obvious jump here. Like, consistency between scenes, it looks cool.
It looks cool. This is the thing everyone is sharing at the moment. The outputs from VO3, and keeping in mind that at least for the version that people have access to, it only produces 8-second clips. Maybe it's different for the internal Google stuff. I imagine it would be. But so it's obviously quite limited in terms of what it can do processing-wise, but it looks pretty good in a way that is... it's generally accepted that Google is actually at the cutting edge of the AI video generation
Yeah.
stuff. In fact, I think it's pretty clear to say that, at least in terms of like bullshit leaderboard stuff with AI, Gemini and that whole family of products are kind of the cutting edge right now.
Yeah.
And then keep it. This is a reminder, and apologies to those that follow this stuff really closely, but Google was quote unquote late to the generative AI moment, despite the fact that Google researchers were the ones that came up with the transformer model, which underpins all the modern generative AI stuff, from ChatGPT to Claude to Grok to whatever it is you're talking about. Google researchers, or researchers for Google Brain, pretty much invented it. But because Google was big company, a little bit conservative in the way they did things.
Well, and yeah, so big. When we say big company, as in the research team was a long way away from the product team, who was a long way away from the commercialization team, etc. And
they didn't commercialize or lean into this stuff, and they weren't the first ones out the gate. Obviously, and we'll talk about this in a sec, but, the cash cow of Google was its advertising and its search advertising. It didn't want to rock the boat by doing anything crazy, so it didn't go down this pathway.
I would push back on even that. I think it's like they were slow to move, but I don't know how much was internal or too scary. No, it'll hurt the bottom line.
On search, definitely, which we're going to talk about in a bit, but maybe not. Maybe I overstepped the mark by saying generally. But anyway, for whatever reason, they were slow off the starting block. But I think it's pretty clear now that they've done all the internal restructuring they need to be on the right page. All cylinders are firing, and this Google I/O is basically them showing we are cutting edge in AI.
Yeah.
We are the guys.
Well, I will say, in that it does seem like, and we talk about this a lot, from a model perspective. I think from video they've almost not always been ahead, but we had OpenAI they
Sora.
teased Sora, and Google relatively soon after that started releasing VO, and almost since then people have been like, I think Google's kind of hotter when it comes to video, and you can imagine that they're being able to train it on YouTube without using hacky scraping or whatever. They can.
It's probably quite helpful.
That would be quite helpful, etc. But yeah, they've always been pretty good at video. Their models have always been pretty good, but still the product side of things, as in specifically people paying money or even just going to Gemini to use Gemini as a chatbot bot as if they would ChatGPT, no one's doing it.
Yep.
As far as the actual product is concerned, and we'll get into why maybe that doesn't matter in a minute, but let's stick on other announcements.
Yeah, but just to conclude the VO thing,
it has audio now.
It has
That's
audio,
important.
and the thing that people you can go, if you go on X and you search VO, you'll see a whole bunch of clips of people generating. The ones that I thought were quite good is that someone was generate a guy doing stand-up comedy, generate the joke, and they described a guy that looks like this doing a stand-up joke, and I think it was a pretty simple prompt. And the video that comes out looks quite real. Actually, if I was scrolling past it on fucking Instagram Reels, I would probably think it was real without studying it closely. And it the joke that they told, I can't even remember what they were, but they were real. They were pretty basic. The one that I remember seeing was the guy that was I went to a zoo, and there were just a couple of dogs there. Yeah, it was a shit zoo. You've heard that joke.
Yeah,
it's not great.
Well, I haven't heard that joke, but I actually think it's not bad.
Yeah. But the inflection of the guy saying it, the video of the stand-up stage where it looks like one of those fucking annoying stand-up TikTok clips, looked pretty good. As I said, if I hovered on it while I was watching it on TikTok, again 8 seconds long, I would be like, oh, that's AI actually. Jesus Christ, what the hell have they done to us? What the hell is going on in this world?
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, I was like, this is starting to get into the realm where it's a useful production tool. Well, I don't know how useful it is.
The usefulness nature comes from, at least in the monetizable sense, if I can use it in Google Ads, right?
Well, yeah.
If I can make YouTube ads for $500, I can say, I want to spend $750 a month advertising whatever my T-shirt brand, and I just want to make some models wearing my T-shirt.
I strongly suspect it's still pretty useless for actual professional workflows. as all.
I mean, professional being like actually professional.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
But I mean,
but in terms of like, I put something out that I then attach to something that makes money for me. Maybe it's useful now.
well, I mean, like, so the whole thing. I think we've talked about this before with Meta. Like, literally, when the big brands did like the Meta, we're bailing on Meta because they're, I don't know, Cambridge Analytica and Trump, whatever.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
boycotts.
They're giving teenagers depression, all that sort of.
Yeah, whenever there's a Meta boycott or whatever, their revenue just doesn't change basically because sure, like if Estee Lauder or whatever and Dove and all these brands pull their money from Meta, that's actually not like they have the longest of long tails, and Google Ads is the same in that your local plumber is not going to pull their ads from. They're not going to boycott
because of Cambridge Analytica.
They're not going to boycott Meta because of Cambridge Analytica, right?
In fact, I'll put it out there. I would say your local plumber still hasn't heard about Cambridge Analytica, even though it happened 10 years ago,
right? And they never will.
No, they're never going to hear it. They're like, "Why are you saying this to me?
What are these words?
You said something was wrong with your toilet." Now you're talking about me about something that happened in a UK. They were taking someone's files. Tell me what's wrong with your toilet.
Exactly. Point being, like 99% of Meta's ad revenue is from small businesses. Basically, is from the long and drop shippers and blah blah blah. And like for that audience, they don't need. It doesn't.
No,
you can say like, make me video that sell.
A real video
toothbrush.
Exactly.
That sell like fucking the organic underarm deodorant that I make in my garage.
Another video I saw on VO3 was like the prompt was something like a video of a guy that's running and he's doing a pitch for some sort of like supplementary vitamin or whatever.
Yeah,
and the guy is jogging. It looks pretty realistic. He sounds out of breath. And he's like, you got to try blah, blah, blah. And then also VO3 intuited that you wanted text on the screen advertising the product that they're talking about. Again, you look at that and you're like, that could definitely be used to, generate some leads.
Well, but this is where it gets interesting, right? Because I think that this stuff right now is not that useful for like, make me Facebook ad, make me one Google YouTube ad. Like it trying its own shit. It's Google itself going out there and like making 9 billion variations around your product and then delivering you the ROAS that you want per customer. Like, I guess to take a step back, maybe I should explain some stuff. Like, if I'm selling a product that I think the customer lifetime value, the money that I'm going to make, the profit I'm going to make from a customer over 1 year, 5 years, whatever it is, so let's say, because I mean, customer lifetime value actually is a bit of a misnomer because typically it means 1 year, the revenue you're going to get from a customer in 1 year. But, different organizations have different time horizons.
Get a load of this guy.
So say that I mean, you're a down round subscriber, for example. For the most part, we do none of this analytics on you, by the way. Like I don't even really know. I'm never really that familiar with what the numbers particularly are, let alone our customer acquisition cost, because we don't do any advertising. But regardless, say that we did. I would assume that our like average tenure for a subscriber like is, say, we've only been around 2.5 years and we don't have that much churn. But like, let's say it's 18 months.
Sure.
So the average down round subscriber hangs around for 18 months, let's say. So over that 18 months, the profit that you make, and now I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass, although like it's pretty easy to work it out with our business model.
With our transparent pricing.
$9.50 a month. Cost of goods sold is negligible, folks. I'm going to be frank.
We're not putting a lot into this.
But like, let's say $100 every 18 months. So cool. So then our average, so we expect for every one new subscriber that we'll probably make $100 off them. That's, again, I'm pulling these numbers out my ass, but it might be fucking, directionally true. So therefore, especially given that there's no marginal cost for us, like each new subscriber doesn't make our job any harder. No. I'm going to be saying the same shit I'm saying literally right now.
It wears on the. It weighs heavy on the soul though for each new listener.
But the case is we would expect for every new paying subscriber to generate $100. We'd be happy to pay $90 realistically. to get one new subscriber. We don't. It's much nicer to pay nothing. But
it feels good, yeah.
assume you're a normal business or whatever. Like, you'll have some certain amount of cash that it's like, okay, we expect that for every single new customer, we generate $100 of revenue. How much do you want to pay for that $100 of pure profit? Well, probably $90. My point is, you're willing to give that. That's what nowadays. That's what Google and Meta ask. They say like, what ROAS are you targeting?
Yep.
Like, how much do you want to pay? Like, what's your profit? Like, for every dollar you spend on us, how much do you expect to get back? And so there's definitely a world where, as I've said, again, use like VO3 is literally Google just says, listen, tell me about your product, send us a link to your website. What do you want to pay? Like, what's the ROAS? What do you expect the return on ad spend? Like, what do you want it to be? We'll handle the rest, and part of that is just like generating
video ads and
10,000
distributing it to whatever.
variations of,
Yeah.
like video ads, and sometimes it might be like someone that looks like they're on their phone being like, have you ever considered organic underarm deodorant or whatever the fuck it is that you're advertising? Let's be honest, that works even better given that you need to have no creativity anymore, like for zero marginal cost goods like online courses, training, this kind of shit.
No, there's going to be a ton more of this shit. And this is also what Meta wants to do. We're not going to do this whole episode about this, but I think we should flag that, like, it seems like so far that Llama 4 was a complete fucking disaster for Meta. We talked about it briefly a few weeks ago. This is their new release of, like, their new open source AI. It seems like this has been completely disastrous for Meta.
Yeah, it seems like Meta went from a thing that's like pretty good and open source, that's and everyone can use it, to a thing that is not that good that they also tried to just hack to make it look good on all the tests.
Yeah, they literally lied, basically.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that didn't work very well at all. So maybe we'll cover this in a future episode. It sounds like there's turmoil internally as well. A whole bunch of people resigning.
We've covered it. If you've been listening closely, we went from Meta bulls and the stock was pumping to, I think Zuckerberg's taken this a little bit too far. He's getting a little cringe, and surprise, surprise, in the months after that, they released shit products.
You should have listened to us when we said that he went like the wheel of cringe and based. he looped around.
Yeah,
the Kali Yuga, the dark age has begun. Of cringe.
Yeah, and it was just before the Mike Isaac episode, I think, when he did the mea culpa. Actually, we've been too woke.
Yeah, exactly. And his clothing got a little bit too swaggy.
A little bit too swaggy.
A little bit too self-aware. And then all of a sudden, failure of their LLM model.
Exactly. And it was...
sunset.
It was him wearing the, I know it wasn't
the weird Roman theme.
The Roman theme with his name in it. Hail Zuck or whatever. It was like, I think that was the moment.
Yeah. And also, putting in his lot with Trump and then tariffs and shit. A lot of people got rocked by that stuff.
Yeah, but it was, and then the T-Pain collab, it was like, oh,
what are you? Oh, you're the same guy. Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. Wait, you don't have swag.
What the hell? Why did I think you did?
He was in the swag sweet zone. I guess the thing is with art is that you're always teetering on the grey area of cringe.
Exactly, and sometimes if you're not prepared, you don't have the right image consultant, you can tumble into the abyss.
Yeah, and his boy in the UFC, Bo Nickel, also got bombed by RDR, a Dutchman. Anyway.
You don't want to get cooked by a Dutchman. Anyway, so we're not going to Meta. This was an aside. So
yes, yeah.
Video stuff.
Stuff, cool. Yeah,
we went into that.
That took longer than I thought that it would. But,
that's right.
It's interesting. It looks good. Like, things will change. Video being a completely commodified, zero marginal cost. It's not quite zero right now, but is interesting.
They announced a whole bunch of shit in terms of little model updates and new, LLM models, like their open source one, and then there's Gemini 2.5 and all these sorts of things.
Shit. Yeah.
We're not going to go into explicit detail on this. If you want, you can look it up. But they're chugging along.
They're
on
cooking.
that.
Yeah. Bundling.
Well, this is the interesting thing. So, OpenAI opened the gambit where it became acceptable that you've got a consumer tier subscription cost, which is the price is basically $20 to $30 a month.
Yeah.
Everyone sort of accepted, okay. But I think purely because OpenAI did it, they were like, okay.
$20 American.
$20
here in
exactly.
Australia, it's $30.
$20 US. and you get access to some sort of like plus or premium tier.
You don't really have to worry about usage
Exactly.
of like normal AI, like LLM.
You're not going to get capped. You get to use the latest, standard model that they have on offer. You might get some image generations. Maybe you'll get some video generations if they're generous. But the idea is that if you're a guy who is a little bit more sophisticated than just using whatever the free version is, and you have your usage demands are a bit higher and you need it to be good.
Well, it's basically just as soon as you start hitting the cap, right?
It's literally basically, it's like average power users. Grok does it. Gemini has a $20 tier, whatever. But then OpenAI came out with their pro tier, $200 a month, which automatically puts it out of the reach of most people that don't know what SaaS means. Yeah. Sure. Prerequisite, you need to know what SaaS stands for to pay $200 a month for something.
Yeah.
And probably
US.
$20. So OpenAI did that pro model that gives you like...
But it came out with deep research was one, which was a different
thing.
But that said, now everyone can do deep research if you pay
the classic thing is if you sign up for OpenAI Deep Research, you get unlimited or close to it of their very latest like super complex reasoning models, whatever. Anyway, Gemini have announced their own $249 US.
Yeah, but we're saying in the OpenAI one as well, of course, using Sora, their video model, was a big part of that. Because it sounds like these video models are quite expensive.
But also Sora is now available without caps on Plus.
Oh, right. There you go. To be honest, I've tried to use it a few times. It's always been utter dog shit.
Well, yeah, exactly. I don't think Sora... I know we've done episodes about it. An episode about it in the past. But again, they're not in the same class as this VO stuff that Google is doing. So, anyway.
Like in that, like, you can get, I'm sure, some nice stuff out of it. But if you literally just put a photo of yourself in and say, give this a bit of animation, it's going to mangle your head really bad.
In a very disturbing and insulting way. I mean, their image stuff seems to be pretty cutting edge at the moment. Like their new...
It is for generative stuff, but as soon as you give it... Well, yeah, we've talked about this. As soon as you give it a person, it
fucks up. And Google's better at that. And Grok is better at that.
Yeah.
Also, I will say, I do find this unfortunately very funny, is that because on X you can @Grok and ask it questions, but it lets you do image stuff as well. So if someone posts a picture, you're free to do this if you like. If someone posts a picture, like a selfie on X, and you just reply @Grok, make this person look stupid, it will immediately do that for you in a way that is quite compelling. So if you've ever been like, I don't know if this AI stuff has any, quantifiable KPI, you just got your shit wrecked, brother. Anyway, so there's that.
The bundle, yeah.
The bundle. So now...
$250 American for the Google the Google like Pro tier, which gives you VO3, importantly, like heaps of video. Because this is one, like Sam Altman reckoned that they were losing money on the $200 a month tier.
Yeah.
Because the people who were using it were just thrashing it. Absolutely thrashing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's your complexity there, right? Is that the people that are willing to do that are people who are like, I'm paying you $200.
Yeah.
I'm going to absolutely ride this.
Yeah. At any one time, I'm doing deep research on like 15 different vague topics and then asking like a different AI to like summarize that. I'm making videos of God knows what.
It's using more power than anybody used. That you're probably using more power in a month than the entire Earth used in 2005.
Exactly.
So that's a problem to deal with.
But yeah, Google's tier. This is what's interesting. So it's basically similar, right? It's like you get access to the best ever models. You get no caps.
You get your VO stuff. So all this stuff is pretty standard for AI. But then, and this is the thing that made my eyebrow perk up, you get YouTube Premium.
Yep.
You get 30 terabytes of Google Drive.
Yeah.
And automatically, those things alone... That's just a bonus. Like you're not signing up for a $250 a month subscription US, just so you can get YouTube Premium and 30 terabytes of Google Drive, which you can get far, far cheaper independently. But as I saw that, I was like, okay, Google, at least at the moment, have like a motion that no other AI company does, which is that, or most don't, which is that they actually do have a range of products that normal people would like.
Yeah.
So at the $250 a month price point, maybe it's not compelling, but you can see a world where
if you chuck in YouTube TV, which gets you access to all the cable TV stuff, now I'm thinking about it.
Now it's kind of like, let's say they managed to like optimize their AI shit to a massive degree, and they were able to offer this for $150 a month. And what it gives you is every online service that Google offers, plus whatever else they've come up with in the interim. Latest AI models. You've got subscription TV, cable TV.
Yeah.
You've got
YouTube Premium.
30 gigabytes of online
30
storage.
teras. Yeah.
30 terabytes of online storage. You've got, whatever else.
And also
domain hosting.
And because
they got rid of that.
Yes, they did. Yeah, that's true. Gave it Squarespace. What the fuck? But including that like if you want an AI that has quote unquote memory, they have the biggest context what do you call it? Context windows. They have the biggest context windows. It can search, so its context window includes your Gmail and includes your calendar and all this shit. Then
you can see. I feel like there's still. I mean, Google have always been behind on, like what is the pitch to the end consumer? It's always their stuff has been sort of all over the shop.
Yeah.
Great
totally.
individual,
and feels all over the shop.
YouTube's amazing individually, but how does it connect with anything else they do?
Yeah.
Never clear.
How does it connect with your your G Drive kind of storage? It feels separate. I mean, like, okay, look at myself. I'm an Apple user, as everyone knows, but I do pay for YouTube Premium.
Yep.
I think that is a complete no-brainer. But yeah, I pay for YouTube Premium. I pay for a friggin' Google Drive.
Yep.
Because like I started a Gmail fucking 20 years ago, or whenever it first came out, and I need the extra storage. As I said to you earlier, like I decided that I do want a proper backup of my photos. It's not just I don't want to just rely on Apple. In that, I think we were talking about a few weeks ago. I tried to log into iTunes to buy some MP3s, and I literally just couldn't because of some weird Apple weirdness. And whilst I don't think it's very likely, because this is their most important product, I realized I don't want a situation where like I get a new phone and like the photos don't load on it, and then I go back to my old phone and the photos also aren't there, and I open my computer and the photos are gone, and I'm like,
and all the photos of your kids are gone,
and I'm like, Apple, iCloud, give me photos. And obviously, basically, point being like, I don't want my photos to go, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sync to Google Photos as well. So all my photos are synced to Apple and Google. That's my backup. Whatever. Point being, so therefore I had to go up a couple of tiers of my Google Drive. But now we're talking like, okay, and my wife presumably pays for like Google Drive as well. Because you just kind of, this is like a tax of just being alive, right? Is like you're gonna pay Google a little bit of cash because you got some shit stored on Google.
Yeah, and if you can't afford to pay Google anything, you're paying them in your time.
And, deleting old shit.
And the ads that get forced into your eyeballs.
Exactly,
you're paying them in some way.
But my point is like, if you bundle that in, like YouTube Premium, Family, plus Google Drive space, I'm already at Australian dollars here, not American, but I'm already at like $50-$60 before I've even started like talking about AI stuff.
Yeah. So,
whilst the mind does balk at the idea of like, hold on, I'm going to pay an Apple or a Google or a company
$250 a month. It's kind of hard to imagine I would do that right now, at least as one discrete payment. But, they seem to have them and Apple maybe seem to have like the clearest claim to being like, we wrap enough stuff into that.
Well, yeah.
That if you think about it objectively.
Yeah, well, go back to if I keep running my numbers up, YouTube Premium, space, like a few terabytes, then my $30 a month for fucking OpenAI. I pay $50 a month for Apple One, but like, sure, that's a lot of that's kind of like storage and other weirdness. But like, we're getting up there pretty quick before we're even, saying like it's a Netflix replacement. But once you tuck on like, Google TV or whatever, which is $80 or $90, and that does give you all the cable TV. Anyway, point being, you can see the brain getting there.
The point is what I would say is that it certainly hasn't won me over yet, but you can kind of see the gears ticking as to what they're thinking about. At least the idea that rarely for Google, they're thinking about it in a cohesive way where they're like, we have a whole bunch of stuff. How do we wrap this together into a compelling package we can sell to a regular person? Not there yet, but they're kind of getting there. So,
most importantly, though, let's skip along. Most importantly, point being is Google search.
So search. So this is actually, I was about to say it wraps up something we've been talking about. It does not wrap it up at all, but it simply gives us the dub.
Yeah.
The dub of what we've been talking about over the past few weeks even. A couple of weeks ago, we said to you that Apple's Eddie Q got up in front of a Google antitrust trial. He got up in front of the remedies hearing, and he said, for the first time, search traffic declined across Apple devices. First time in 20 years. And then he went on to say, in 10 years, you may not need an iPhone, as bizarre as that sounds.
I'm going to claim the dub from earlier than that. I feel like we've been clear, we've been clear, that Google becomes ChatGPT before ChatGPT becomes Google.
Okay, yeah.
I think that thesis is what we're seeing play out here.
Yeah. So, the great tension is that, Google has one of the biggest and most effective money printers that's ever been made in human history. Right?
Yeah.
Google and Meta.
I search for anything and they get to run.
And they get money.
And they, yeah. Exactly.
I have a thought about the world and I attempt to action it, and Google receives money from that.
Well, to break it down slightly one layer below that, I have a desire.
Let's keep it at that level.
And Google says, hey, if you pay, you can get in front of this desire.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that is what every advertiser craves.
Exactly. There's an intentionality to my thought, briefly. My abstract thought finds a point. It resolves into something specific. And Google is like, yep, I'll take 3 cents off that.
Or who wants to be there? For this gentleman's thought is resolving to a concept. Who wants to pay the most? If you pay the most, you can be there.
3 cents, 4 cents. We got a 4 cents over here. 4 cents, amazing. Imagine that happening billions of times a day or whatever. That amazing money printer, Google advertising. We know this. And we know that Sundar Pichai, the Google CEO, for most of his tenure has been way less of an empire builder. We talked about this the other week. Eric Schmidt was an empire builder. He saw some newfangled thing that was happening. He was like, Google needs to be doing that. Google needs to be doing that. Sundar Pichai was more like, okay, let's just stick to what we have, but extract as much potential and value out of it.
Yeah, I mean, and build out Google Cloud. Look, the elephant in the room here is that, and we've said this for years, and it's still the zeitgeist. It's still the vibe in kind of analyst circles and tech circles is that Sundar's been floundering, Google's been floundering, they don't know what they're doing. They're just mucking around trying to protect the golden goose of search. I don't think that... I think that a lot of that comes from the fact that, let's be frank, Google are perceived as the woke ones, right? They're the woke company. They're the company where, people are playing ping pong and it's a dormitory and it's this really kind of diffuse flat structure with
you're allowed to work on your own projects.
Yeah, and they kind of advertise that. They're they have all these people off doing research and blah blah blah. And I, to a certain extent, yes, as I said, I do think that's true that they probably struggle to communicate between different divisions and therefore are less efficient. But it is still the case right now, at least in the media that I consume, that I think people are underrating what Google has been doing and where Google are at. And we've been saying for a while that Google, since the beginning, Google are the ones who are in the position to win the hardest out of AI. They have all of the pieces.
Yeah, all the pieces are there. No.
Anyway, point being, but they're running at it.
Yeah, they've basically announced that they're rolling out what was previously in testing, which is AI mode for Google search. Which is the idea that, they've been introducing AI summaries and all this sorts of stuff into search. But now they're releasing this AI mode, which they're pitching, at least initially, as kind of think of this as prose search. You can give it a more complex query. But the whole idea is, when you drill down to it, we are introducing a chatbot, ChatGPT style interface that you can turn on for when you go to google.com. And that is a pretty big intervention and a pretty big suggestion that they're okay, We're not releasing the classic Google.com ultra simple text box for everyone. Keeping in mind, the whole internet has been run out of the Google.com simple search box for over 25 years. 30 years, basically. Like 1996 or whatever. 30 years of like culture, commerce, whatever you want to talk about has been run out of. You go to Google.com, you get a very, very simple blank page with a search box. You punch it in, you get your 10 blue links. They've dicked around with that basic format by adding summaries and like knowledge graphs and all this sort of shit. But now they're basically saying that if you like, you can turn on AI mode,
and we'll
which gives you don't go to websites, you get the answer delivered to you. And you might be like, well, that's not that crazy. ChatGPT's been doing it for ages. It's a big deal for Google.
Because all of their money comes from you looking through a bunch of links.
And seeing the sponsored links and whatever, getting a template. It's actually seismic. And they're doing it slowly.
But most people aren't going to turn on the AI search. But like, obviously, the future isn't two modes of Google. It's like...
This is what we think the future of Google is. We're going to get rid of the text box, the search box eventually.
And this is like really interesting because, I mean, I think we talked about it when AI first came out, literally like when ChatGPT first came out. Like we talk about it all the time. Clay Christensen, the innovator's dilemma, the idea that, you know, the Kodak moment. Kodak invented the digital camera, but the digital camera was going to disrupt their film business, and so they didn't release the technology, or they suppressed to a certain extent the technology. It came out eventually and crushed them. The innovator's dilemma, you know, when a new technology comes out and it fundamentally disrupts your business model, which is the case here. It fundamentally changes the concept from, getting a few cents for showing an ad with a free search to a subscription for, you know, this AI service. That is like a fundamental disruption to the business model. Because like disruption isn't just like, previously you could buy something for $10, but this company's selling it for $1. Like that is... that's just like an efficiency to like production or whatever it is. That's not real disruption. Real disruption is when a new business model comes along. You know, the internet people used to buy newspapers. The internet came along, gave them news for free. It's like, okay, that's a new business model. In this case, as I said, Google sold ads against free searches. Now people are paying ChatGPT $20 a month to like get the similar results. It's a new business model. But Google are meeting, at least looks like they're meeting the challenge by being like, we are going to disrupt our own business model. A classic example of this is, or at least from a product sense, it's not really a business model disruption, but like, you know, Apple released the iPhone, which cannibalized the iPod. As soon as the iPhone came out, iPod sales just like went to the trash, because why would you buy an iPod if you could buy an iPhone? But like, obviously they made way more money off the iPhone than they did off the iPod, etc. So like that's the bet that Google's making here is we will dominate this and we will make more money in the long run, or at least, you know, than by protecting search revenue. And I think I know that I've been like a Google simp for the last little bit, but even before I was getting paid money from them, I did say like, I think it's the right move. I think that Google does win here. They've just got all of the building blocks for it. They've just got all the pieces. If they can put it together, in particular, the one thing is like in a compelling product. Like that is the one thing that Google, I think, has kind of somewhat struggled with for their entire life. But yeah, I remain resolute that Google.com becomes, before you know it, a ChatGPT-esque interface, but that has access to your email and whatnot. Before ChatGPT can usurp it as like in people's mind, that's the place I go to search the internet.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and it does come back to, it comes a bit to what we were talking about last week with Airbnb, right? Like Airbnb can't become an everything app because it lacks the surface that like a messaging app has. In the case of something like WeChat, it's like ChatGPT is trying to like build all the touch points for search and all these other bits and pieces that Google already has. Yeah. Right? Google has a gigantic LLM and AI research team that could, as we are seeing very clearly with Google AI and whatever, and Gemini and all this sort of stuff, is building out to becoming throwing resources at becoming a cutting edge frontier model company. And they don't have to worry about how do we build like all the fun user interface parts because they already have it. They've had it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Whereas the ChatGPT is like, oh, fuck, we have to rebuild
We have to
email.
change user
We have
behavior.
to rebuild email. We have to rebuild search. We have to rebuild whatever.
Well, yeah, and they're investing in a fucking device. You know?
Yeah, exactly. We're getting Johnny Ive to build us an AI device.
Yeah.
This is the other thing that was announced at Google AI is they're doing glasses with Warby Parker.
Yeah.
So it's a very funny comparison. It's like, okay, Meta works with Ray-Ban.
Yeah.
Google works with Warby Parker, which still has like the halo of being kind of cool or whatever.
Yeah.
For a different audience.
Yeah. I mean, but part of this, I think, though, is... Well, there's an interesting part of this is a diversion, but like with both Meta and Google's collaboration is they want the shops where people are going in and buying glasses already. I think that's like kind of important, like the retail footprint or whatever, rather than the go online and like they've tried the friggin' Google Glass thing where it's like go online and buy as opposed to like go into Sunglasses Hut or whatever it is. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. One other important thing I think to mention about you can turn your Google search into Gemini search or whatever, is that they announce, and again, we'll see, have to kind of see it to fully believe it. But trying on dresses and stuff like that and trying on clothes is all kind of part of your Google search experience now. And you can see how they're like wanting to integrate the Google shopping tab and whatnot with AI. It makes sense to put it in a different place right now. But again, it speaks to like where it's going, right? Like when you hit... I don't know about you, but I use the shopping tab on Google search a fair bit. If I'm looking for a product, then I'll hit shopping on Google search and like just see all that. You don't use that?
No, I don't actually.
I've been using that for years. I use that for years. When I'm just
I don't think I've ever used it.
If I'm looking just for like the best price on something, on like something fairly generic that I know that like there's going to be 900 different stores selling the same product.
That makes intuitive sense. I've just never thought to do it.
Oh, I do it all the time. But like, I can imagine a world where, well, not a world even, it's just like, and this is what they say they're kind of doing in Gemini, the same thing. I mean, if you don't use it, this is less compelling for you, but like as someone who uses this regularly, just like search product and then hit shopping and see where the best price is and then hit that website and buy it from that, ignoring the ads. If it's something that involves me, it's just pictures of me wearing the product, or if
you're
it's
locked in.
Or if it's like my kitchen or whatever, and it just has, because it's got access to Google Photos, pictures of my kitchen, and it just like flips the oven out for the oven or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, then yeah, like that's a better way for me to look for a product, and I'm already using Google to look for the product. I don't know, makes sense to me. I think they're going to be all right. That said, maybe they're not. Because they make so much... There are so many ads in Google search.
Yeah, I mean, this is...
How do you make up the difference?
This comes down... Like, no one has figured out what advertising looks like in a fully AI-enabled world, where it's like either you're using a chat interface or, you know, it's preempting what you want or it's giving you digests. I mean, digest is probably a bit easier. But it's pretty clear that, you know, Google is insanely subsidizing all of its AI stuff. I mean, everyone is. But no one has figured out what advertising looks like. We talked about a few weeks ago, Fidji Simo, the former Meta executive, is now in charge of OpenAI as like their applications CEO. And I guarantee you that she is, at least in part, in charge of figuring out how do we cram ads into this in the way that they did.
In particular in the free users one.
So like we're going to see versions of this, but it's still a bit up in the air as to what it looks like and who's going to win that. But you'd find it hard to bet against Google when it comes to cramming ads into things.
Yeah. They'll keep doing it.
Anyway, I think we will... There's a couple of other stray bits from this that we will talk about in our premium episode Behind the Paywall. And then the rest of our chats about NVIDIA, chips...
Yeah, Apple will feature in this.
And we'll get an Apple as well. We'll get right into it, folks.